So today we'll continue with the speaking section, and we're actually going to be looking at the last task. So let me show you. Okay, so remember that we have 4 tasks in the speaking section, don't we? The first one was the independent one, the one about your opinion on something. The second one is the one where you have this conversation going, everything else is on campus. The third one was the last one we saw, the one where you have to first read something, then listen to a lecture and summarize. And today we'll be looking at the last one, task 4. So it's actually quite similar to task 3, you'll find that. Let's see. Okay, so for this task, which is, as I was saying, very similar to task 3, it's still an integrated one, it's still on academic topics. So the only difference really regarding structure is that you won't have to read anything anymore. So there's no reading in this part. You're just going to have to be listening to this lecture where the professor is going to be explaining a topic, and that's it. Okay, so you just listen to the lecture, it lasts like 2 or 3 minutes, and then you get the question, which is always the same. Using the points and examples from the lecture, explain, and then you got whatever the topic was. And the timing, by the way, is the same. It's exactly the same. You get 30 seconds to prepare your response, and then in 1 minute, you gotta answer the question. Okay, so any questions about this? You listen to the lecture, 30 seconds to prepare, and 1 minute to speak. Any questions? Okay. About the topics that you'll find, they are exactly the same as we saw for task 3. So you could still have psychology topics, biology or business usually. And, chances are you won't have anything different from that. But in case, I don't know, something happens and, luck is not on your side, then maybe you have something about art or history or literature, sociology, geology, what have you. But usually you will just find one of these 3. Maybe the difference would be that in this case, you do have some more biology topics, to be honest, and it may be a bit more complicated because of that. But, it's still the same. Psychology is about our brain, memory, experiences, emotions. Biology is still about animals and plants. And business, a bit of finance, marketing, and different strategies, advertising, that kind of stuff. So do you guys have any questions about this before we move on? Okay. So finally, let's look at the structure. So here's what makes it different from task 3, and this is really important to see. So how will this lecture be? Well, at the beginning, the professor will provide a short introduction to the topic. So it will be like a normal class, like a college class, something like, hey guys, today we're going to be looking at this thing. And then you got the topic. Now at the beginning, you may have a bit of an introduction. So you could have some explanations. There are some even examples sometimes. So let's say that the topic is on pollution. So the professor will be like, hey, today we'll be looking at pollution, and maybe start describing what pollution is, what it means, or an example of how it works or what it is, I don't know. So you may have something there, like a short intro about the general idea. But believe me when I say that's not gonna be as important as what you will have next. So the biggest piece of advice I could give you here is don't worry too much about that introduction. Of course, just listen to it. You don't even take notes, just listen to it and make sure that you understand what the idea is, so what the thing is about. But you won't need that much information here. Now, what comes next, that's what's important. So the thing is that the professor will break that topic down into 2 subtopics. So no matter what it is, you will always have 2 subtopics. That's not going to change. It's not like in task 3. So there's always those 2 parts, and they are well defined. So for example, if you're talking about pollution, you have something like, I don't know, 2 types of pollution, or 2 causes of pollution, or 2 effects of pollution, or two definitions of what pollution is. Okay, so there are many ways in which, or many organizational styles of lectures, but the thing is that you will have two of them. Okay, and here sometimes you have these very specific terms, like maybe water pollution or something. And then you may also have a short definition on what that term is. So maybe the first type is water pollution, which means when water is contaminated in this way and in that way, I don't know. So you may have a short definition in there. And finally, you get a very specific example. So some details in there. So it could be maybe the name of a river or the history of this lake, I don't know, okay? But it's gonna be something very specific there. So it always goes like that, from general to specific. You got the introduction, then you got the first subtopic, maybe a short explanation, a definition on what it is, and an example. And the exact same thing will happen for subtopic 2. So you just need to pay attention for those elements. Okay, I'm gonna repeat, the introduction is not that important. So don't even worry that much about taking notes, just make sure that you get the idea. But this is really important. So if you got any terms, if you got any numbers in there, maybe any names, any specific concepts, definitions, make sure to take notes on them. Okay, so is that clear? Is everything okay so far? Okay, guys.
Yes, teacher, any doubt?
All right. So, you know, the steps to follow, what you need to do is what I just said. Just pay attention to the subtopics mainly and the examples. And of course, it's important that you understand the general idea, the bigger picture. Now, here's a tip I can give you. Sometimes, basically make sure to read the question, because sometimes in the question, you will have the general idea or the topic. So something very summarized from all that introduction that you will have something pretty short in the question. And sometimes you also have the subtopics, what they are, or sometimes even the examples. Okay, so it's gonna be of big help. Make sure that you read the question, that you pay attention to it. Don't just, you know, let it go by. Just pay attention and read the question. So, and some other tips I can give you in your response, you're just gonna have to summarize everything that you've listened to. And when you do that, you need to remember that you're reporting. So it's gonna work in the same way that we did for the other integrated tasks. You need to act like a reporter, use simple present reporting verbs like the professor states that, the professor claims, or according to the professor, pollution is. Okay, so you need to make sure that you use them. Of course, you're not gonna use them for every single sentence or every single idea, but like in general, 2 or 3 times you should use reporting verbs in your response. Another thing for when you're listening, pay attention to these transition words. Those are like your red flags. So the professor will probably use them. At the beginning, the professor may say something like, so first, or to start, let's look at water contamination, which is defined as this. And then to illustrate, or take this river as an example. Okay, so pay attention to those transitions. They will give you an idea of how everything's organized. The truth is, you're gonna have to summarize a lot because the lecture will last like 3 minutes and you need to do that in 1. So of course, you're gonna have to leave some things behind, okay? You cannot mention everything or include every single detail, but just know that, you know, it's not really possible to mention everything. Some people like to explain a bit more and elaborate on the ideas, but the thing is, you're not gonna be able to do that here. So just make sure that you catch the most important ideas, the relevant information. You mentioned that. If you got some details, that's okay. You can mention 1 or 2 of them. You don't have to mention every single one, okay? And don't try to speak so fast, you know, just speak with enthusiasm and speak clearly. Make sure that you articulate the words and speak with passion, like you were actually interested in this topic. So, okay, I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if you guys have any questions so far before we look at the example. Do you? Okay. So we're gonna listen to the first lecture. Please make sure that you have a piece of paper there, a pen. We're gonna take some notes, and you know what you're looking for, right? You need to make sure that you get the general idea and the subtopics and the examples. So if you're all ready, we can go ahead. Okay, hold on. Okay.
Listen to part of a lecture in a business class.
If a consumer has to choose between two products, what determines the choice? Assume that someone, a purchaser, is choosing between two products that cost the same, okay? If people have a choice between two identically priced products, which one will they choose? They choose the one they think is of higher quality, of course. But what does it mean for a product to be a high-quality product? Well, business analysts usually speak of two major factors of quality. One factor is reliability, and the other is what we call features. So reliability. What's reliability? Well, a product is reliable if it works the way we expect it to work, if it can go a reasonable amount of time without needing repairs. If a product, a car for example, doesn't work the way it should and needs repairs too soon, it's unreliable. So product reliability means basically the absence of defects or problems that you weren't expecting. It used to be that when people thought about product quality, they thought mainly about reliability. Today, it's different. People do still care about reliability, don't get me wrong. It's just that manufacturing standards are now so high that, we'll take cars for example, Today's cars are very reliable. So reliability is important, but it's not going to be the deciding factor. So if reliability isn't the deciding factor anymore, what is? Features. All those extras, the things a product has that aren't really necessary, but that make it easier to use or that make it cool. For example, new cars today are loaded with features like electric windows, sunroofs, air conditioning, stereos, and so forth. When people are comparing products today, they look at features because reliability is pretty much equal across the board. And that's why manufacturers include so many features in their products.
Using points and examples from the lecture, explain the two major factors of product quality and how their role in consumer decision-making has changed. Listen to...
Okay, guys. So that was it. As you can see, 2.5 minutes. Okay. And that was a business one. So we're going to try and discuss that lecture. Okay. So the first thing, who can tell me what the topic is? So what is this lecture about?
The quality of the products we buy.
Okay, great. Quality of products. Anything else?
It's about choosing between two products that have the same price.
Exactly. So yes, that too is true. So choosing between two products with the same price. Okay, so how consumers choose between two products with the same price? Or if you heard the question, you could say consumer decision making, right? So consumer decision making, or how consumers choose between two products with the same price, and also how will you determine the quality of a product? Because I think that's what they are looking for, right? That's how they choose. Okay, guys, so careful with the question, that may give you some hints. Another thing I wanted to say, vocabulary is important. So with biology, it's a bit harder, maybe. There are some words, of course, that you can know. For example, some words that I found a lot would be, predators or praise or that kind of words, you know. With business, it's quite easier to look for some words, and it really makes a difference, you know, because if in your response, you're like, so the lecture is about how people choose between two things with the same price. So it's not the same as if you say something like it's about how customers choose between two products with the same price, right? So that's word choice and it really matters. So, okay, that's perfect. Now, what about the two subtopics? Who can tell me what the first one is? So what was it?
The first one was the reliability. I don't know. Reliability. I don't know how to pronounce well.
I think it's reliability. Reliability.
Okay.
Okay, so that's another business word, and it would be good if it were on your list. Okay, so reliability. But what is it? What's reliability?
The product works the way we expect it to work.
Okay, anything else?
The absence of defects.
Okay, nice. Okay.
To be useful for a long time.
Okay, yes. For a long time. Okay, that's true as well. So if it lasts a reasonable amount of time, if it doesn't have so many defects or any defects, and if it works the way that the consumer expected it to work. Okay, so we have different definitions. I would say it's fine as long as you mention at least one of them. You can mention two. You don't have to explain that much. But as you can see, what I want to look at is the structure. So you see how the first topic is a very specific term, reliability, and then you have a definition. So what reliability is. So that's usually the way it's going to be. Sometimes it will be a bit different, like maybe you don't have a one word expression, you have something longer, but it's still the same. So did you notice any examples on how the professor illustrates this concept of reliability?
He mentioned the cars manufacturer.
Okay, what about?
That now cars work for a long time, and most of them during the same period of time. So it's like common. So
Okay.
nowadays, we don't really look for that quality.
All right, yes. So you're saying reliability is quite the same right now, you know, among all cars, among all products. So it's kind of the same for everything. Okay. And yes, that's also, I think that has to do with how it's changed over time. So what's the major factor or the main factor that consumers look at? Okay. So yes, usually they last the same amount of time. Okay, what am I doing? Okay. Now what about the second one? What's the second one?
And the features that a product have.
Exactly, features. So the features that a product has. Okay, what else? How would you define features?
Like characteristics about the product.
Okay. Yes.
Something extra.
Okay, it's true. Extra. Okay, so yes, those are those extra characteristics that product has that make them more appealing to the customer, maybe, or more or easier to use. Okay, and what about the details? What was the example for that?
The cars that has air condition.
Yes, air conditioning. What else?
And the electric windows.
Windows.
The stereo.
Stairs, yes. Okay, so you have some details here. As long as you mention one or two of them, that's fine. So, great. So it's about quality. We have two subtopics, reliability and features. Now, one more question. How do you guys think the topic is related to the subtopics? So what are these exactly? I mean, what does reliability have to do with the quality of products or choosing between products? So there's a word I'm looking for. I don't know if you know what I mean. How is reliability, or how are reliability and features related to the quality of products?
They are considered by the user to make the final decision.
Okay, exactly. They are considered by the user or the consumer to make the final decision. Okay. So the word I was looking for was factors. Like there are two factors. They are the two factors that consumers consider, right? So that word is not that important, not relevant, but it will be fine, like if you could mention it in your response. Okay, guys. So sometimes you will have something like this, factors or two definitions of reliability, or two, I don't know, two types or two ways in which you could deal with something. I don't know. Okay, so it's important to also notice that. Okay, so that's how the structure will be. Do you guys have any questions about that example? Okay, I think we're gonna have time to practice it like that. So we can do one psychology and a biology one. So now in your response, this is how it should look like regarding structure, not regarding the words. You can change them. So in your response, in your response, you will need first a short introduction in which you will basically tell me what the topic is in general terms. Okay, if you will excuse me one sec. Hold on one sec, please. I'm gonna. Okay, I'm so sorry, guys. Okay, so in your response, what you need to do is basically at the beginning, provide a short introduction in which you will summarize what the topic is. Okay, so you can say something like the lecture is about, or the professor discusses, or the lecturer discusses. I like both terms. This one is a bit more casual, but you could also use discuss. So, okay, and here you need to basically tell me the general topic. Now here you have this transition, or this transition in which okay, so here you have this transition in which you basically could explain how this is related to this, so you could say the lecture's about consumer decision making and product quality, and then you could say after introducing the topic, the professor features two, and then you say two factors that make up quality, or two ways in which consumers decide what product to choose. I don't know. So you could, now what I want to say about this is that it's not that important. So you know that time is really a problem here. So if you guys consider that it's been a problem for you, that you're not making it on time, then you may skip this part. You can just say the lecture is about quality product, or the two factors that make up quality, or consumer decision making and product quality, and then you can go right off to the two subtopics. So it really depends on how you are with time. If you're running out of time constantly, then you can decide and skip that. All right, so it's not that relevant. Now, what is important is that you explain both topics and both examples. So you could use some transitions in here, like to start and then, your reporting verse. So here you have the first term, right? To start, she describes reliability, which is the absence of defects or when a product works this way or that way. And then you go with the example. For instance, cars usually last a reasonable amount of time. And if it does, then it's said to be a reliable car. I don't know. And then you go with the second one and you do the same for that one. Okay. So is it making sense? Is it okay? Do you guys have any questions about the template or the response? Any questions? Okay. So, all right. So is there anyone who would like to put everything together that we got for this same task and come up with a response? So I don't know if anyone would like to do that. I'm gonna. Okay. So that we can figure out time, how time works as well. You know, I think the best way to do it, I mean, as for time goes, or what I would do is in the introduction, I would just 10 seconds. The lecture is about this and that's it. And then you go right off with these ones. So 10 seconds and then 25 for this one and 25 for this one. I think that's the best way to structure it. Of course, you can take 15 if you want, but in that case, well, if you take 15, I think you will have, how would it be? 27 or something, yeah, 27 and a half. So you can play with that. So, okay, I don't know if, can anyone try? Is there anyone who would like to go? We have everything, so you just need to put everything together.
I could try.
Okay, Rodrigo, great. So you can go ahead.
Okay. The lecture is about how people make decisions about the factors that is implying to best quality. To start, the professor, she describes about reliability, which is how a product works and how it's supposed to work, and it has to work well with no repairs or any troubles. Then she goes to explain about the features. The features are the main fact to make a decision, and these are the extra things that a reliable product should have. In both factors, she uses the example of a car which it doesn't need any repair, and a car with plus of, for example, electric windows.
Okay, well done. So, okay, so was it your turn to include the examples at the end, or did you forget and wanted to like add them at the end?
I forgot about the example, so I was trying to fix it at the last 10 seconds, I think.
Okay, but that's great. Okay, you gotta do that. Whenever you forget something, of course, you can add it in the way that Rodrigo was doing it. So you could say, and she provides, and the good thing is that, yes, the examples were the same for both. So you can save some time there. You could also do it at the beginning as well. We're actually gonna be looking at one example where that will be the case. So yeah, well done, Rodrigo. I think your introduction was 10 seconds exactly. I noticed you skipped this part. Nice. And you made it on time. Careful with the template. You don't really need a preposition here that she describes about. You can just say she describes reliability or to explain features. Okay, careful with that. I like that you mentioned that this one is the main factor nowadays. Okay, so nothing to say. Well done, Rodrigo. Okay, guys. So now we're gonna go ahead and practice. Unless, of course, you have any questions. I don't know if you do. Okay, so, all right then. Let's start with a psychology one and see how it goes. Okay, so here's the lecture.
Now listen to part of a lecture in a psychology class.
When people are in difficult situations, sometimes they experience feelings of helplessness or psychological pain. So what do? They unconsciously use strategies called defense mechanisms to protect themselves psychologically from their painful emotions. Let's say a woman has a pet dog. She's had this dog for a long time, and he's kept her company and guarded her for years. But one day he runs away. This woman looks everywhere and asks other people if they've seen her dog, but she just can't find him. Now, she feels helpless and sad because she misses her dog. So she'll unconsciously find ways to deal with her painful feelings. One defense mechanism she might use is fantasy. With fantasy, the woman uses her imagination. So instead of just feeling helpless and sad about her lost dog, she invents a happy story in her mind. She might imagine that a nice family found him and feeds him, and that he's really happy with them. She'll picture the dog playing, running around, having fun. Because of this fantasy, she doesn't have to feel sad about her dog running away. It's a fantasy. It's not real, but it keeps her pain away. Another defense mechanism she might use is what we call sublimation. Sublimation is different from fantasy because sublimation isn't about pretending. It's about turning negative emotions into something useful, practical. So the woman might start a dog training school. That way, by training dogs, perhaps she can help prevent other people's dogs from running away like hers did. In other words, with sublimation as a defense mechanism, the woman redirects her negative feelings about losing her dog into a positive, constructive activity.
Okay. Now the question, I'll read it for you. It is, using points and examples from the talk, describe the two defense mechanisms mentioned by the professor. Using points and examples from the talk, describe the two defense mechanisms mentioned by the professor. Okay, guys. So now everyone will have 30 seconds to prepare, and then we'll see who goes. All right. Okay, so any volunteers? Anyone who would like to go first? Is there? Okay. Then, all right, maybe we can go with Sebastián.
Yep, I can do it.
Okay, so you may go ahead.
Okay, so well, the lecture is about the psychological pain, about emotions. At the beginning, she introduced about two emotions that the people get away when it happens something. The first was the defense. Also, when it happens, something have to pretend to create a fantasy in his or her head. I mean, if we can put an example, we can say that the people invent a happy history. It's not real, but also keep away the pain. And the second was the sublimation, that it's so different as defense. because the sublimations turn the negative emotion to a positive emotion. I mean, it reduces the negative feeling to a happy feeling or emotion that it will works better for the person.
Okay, well done, Sebastian. That was great. So I like the way you structure it. You kept the structure, transitions, you made it in time. Maybe about content, careful with this. You know, one thing you guys can do, because sometimes we take a lot of notes and we're like, okay, but what's the first subtopic? What's the second one? We're looking at the notes and it's like a mess sometimes, you know? So of course you can, one thing, try and take your notes and have them organized in this way so that you can have an idea of how it should look. Or you can also take notes in your template, at least while you're practicing, you know, in the actual test, unless you can write it down very quickly before the task begins, then you're not going to have your template there, but it's going to help get used to that structure, you know? So, for example, you mentioned fantasy, which was the first subtopic, but you kind of said defense, and then you mentioned fantasy. So you knew what it was, but I think you're just kind of getting mixed up with where it belongs. So careful with identifying those terms like fantasy and sublimation. The other one was great. Don't forget the examples. So remember and try to say it like the professor said, you know? So for instance, the professor or she mentions that, and I don't know, a woman may lose her dog and this may happen. So don't forget the examples. They're important, even if you mention them quickly. Now, another thing, and this is kind of what Rodrigo was doing at the beginning, right? So if the examples are about the same, which usually happens with psychology topics and business topics, usually you get the same example for both. In biology, we will do one. You got two different animals. But in psychology, sometimes they're the same, so you can kind of introduce the example at the beginning. You could say the lecture is about defense mechanisms. The professor illustrates this or provides the example of a woman who loses her dog to illustrate this better. And then you say, to start, she describes fantasy, which is making up something happy or a happy story. And then in your example, you don't have to give the context anymore. You can just say, for instance, the woman may imagine a happy story for the dog, or may imagine that the dog was found by a nice family. And then the same here, right? So there are some ways to save time, I mean. Okay, so in general, well done, Sebastian. Don't forget, you know, the structure is the only thing that you're missing, I would say. So it's just practice. Okay, guys. Anybody else would like to do this one, or shall we move on to the biology one before we run out of time?
I would like to try this one, but if you think that it will be better to try a biology one, I don't know, it's all up to you.
I think we can make it on time. So yeah, it's just 1 minute. We can go. So you may go ahead now.
Okay. So the lecture was about defense mechanisms. To start, the professor describes the fantasy mechanism, which works with imagination. She illustrates us with the example of a woman that has lost his dog, and in order to protect herself for that idea, he creates a happy story in which the dog is with a happy family and she lives with that idea. The second defense mechanism will be sublimation, in which he illustrates us with an example also about the dog, in which the defense mechanism will be to create organization in order to return his pain to a good action.
Okay, nice. All right. Okay, perfectly done, Jose. So I love that you got the structure, you mentioned the examples, you went in that order. I like that the intro was quite short, just defense mechanisms, which is great. You know, you don't really have to explain what those are. And then here you kind of mention what they are briefly. So to protect herself from that emotion, she will do this. So I like that. It was clear. careful with the verb illustrate. It usually doesn't need an object. So illustrate, just illustrate without us. So professor illustrates this maybe or something. Try to use these transitions as you go instead of saying the second. And yeah, I think your examples are also well explained. You made it in time, so nothing to say for that. Yeah. Okay, guys. So, all right, now let's do the biology one. Okay, I mean, it depends. Like I would say, like personally, I believe it's a bit harder, but it really depends. Like, depends on how you see it. Okay. Maybe because biology is not my area, but okay. All right, here it is. Please take some notes.
Seconds to speak. Listen to part of a lecture in a biology class.
Today, I want to talk about seabirds. Now, seabirds hunt and eat fish, and, well, their food can be hard to find because their food source is spread out over a large expanse of water. So what seabirds have done is that over time they've made adaptations. They've developed special characteristics that help them find food. One adaptation involves the length of the bird's wings. The albatross, for example, is a large seabird that spends most of its life flying over ocean waters in search of food, fish to feed itself, and to carry back to the nest for its chicks. Now, most birds flap their wings up and down when they fly, which uses up a lot of energy. But the albatross has these special long wings that it can hold perfectly still. It's able to fly without moving its wings up and down. These long wings allow it to glide or float on the wind, and this uses very little energy. This is important because, as I said, the albatross has to cover a huge expanse of ocean to locate food, sometimes up to 1,100 miles a day. Because of its long wings, it can glide along over the ocean, using little energy as it searches for food. Another important adaptation of many seabirds is an acute, highly developed sense of smell. Take the fulmar. Like the albatross, the fulmar needs to find food that's scattered far out over the ocean. But the fulmar has a rather unusual advantage. It has tiny tubes inside the nose holes in its beak, and these special tube-shaped nostrils help it to pick up the scent of food. Now, this highly developed sense of smell is especially important because the fulmar's main source of food, plankton, are tiny organisms that are hard to see, but they give off a very sharp, distinctive odor. So when fulmars are flying around looking for food, they may not be able to see them, but they can find the plankton by smelling them, even from far away.
Using the examples of the albatross and the fulmar, explain two special adaptations that have developed to help seabirds find food.
Okay, so now you guys have 30 seconds to prepare. Okay. So who wants to go? Come on, guys. Anyone? Okay. So what about with Michaela? Are you there?
Yes, teacher, but I couldn't hear very well. My internet was running low, so that was a little rough.
Oh, okay. So you didn't get to take any notes? You didn't get to listen to it?
Yes, I have notes, but I think it's not complete because it was like um, the
Would you
connection.
like to try with what you have, or would you prefer to skip this one?
I think I prefer to skip this one because I don't have many notes.
Okay, fine. So anybody else then?
Okay, maybe I can try.
Okay, sure. All right. So go ahead.
Okay. So the lecture was about the ways that zebras find their food. In order to achieve that, the professor gave us two examples. The first one was about their wings. So zebras that have wings, so the wings help them to move faster in long distance. And in order to illustrate that, he gave us the example of the albatross, in which he used his wings to float across the ocean. The other, well, I don't have any more time. Well, the other example was the filmer who smells the food in order to find it.
Okay, but that's a great way to summarize the other one. I think you summarized it that. Okay, so make sure that you look at the timer at least when you think you're kind of halfway through, so that you can see how much time you have left. But I like the way you summarized the second one, to be honest. And yes, I like that in the first one you were able to identify and differentiate, the subtopic from the example, which is something that people tend to get confused about with these biology tasks. So the subtopics were the length of the wings and the sense of smell, and the two examples were the albatross and the fulmar. So great, you did that. Short intro, the lecture's about, maybe careful with this, look at the question. So it's two adaptations that zebras have developed. So you could say the lecture's about two adaptations that zebras have developed in order to find food. And the first adaptation, that example, is the length of the wings. And then you have the example. Okay, so careful with maybe I don't know, the terminology perhaps, but I think the structure was good. Maybe timing as well. Something you guys can remember, because these biology ones, I don't know why, but they're usually, or at least they seem longer. But usually you will just have to have time to give like one sentence here and the other one for the example. They could be long ones, but try to catch the most important information. The length of the wings, which helps them cover long distances or cover the ocean, to find food, So for instance, the albatross saves energy with their big flat wings, and that helps them cover longer distances. And then the sense of smell, that helps them when they have this acute sense of smell, obviously smell their food. And then the fulmar, that smells plankton. It's usually gonna be just one sentence that you're allowed to do here. And you're gonna discover that, you're gonna learn how it works and, figure that out as you go with practice. What else? We have biology, careful with the pronouns. So try to make everything plural, because I know, like in casual speaking, sometimes we use, he or she to talk about animals as well. But in this case, it would be better if you just use it, which sometimes may be harder. So it's better if you just make it plural. So you say the albatross, that, or they do this, and they flap their wings, and blah, blah, blah. So if you keep that pronoun in plural, it will be easier for you guys. Okay, so those are some things that may help you. So is that okay? Any questions about that? Okay, so remember, it's usually gonna be short. So one sentence here, something summarized, even the details, because they talk about that a lot. You don't have to mention that. Okay, guys, so is everything okay? Do you have maybe any questions about what we've seen today, what we've done, or the task, or comments?
Everything is okay.
Okay, that's great to hear. All right, then, guys, so tomorrow you'll be practicing, and I'll see you on Thursday. And please, before you go, though, don't forget the survey. I just launched it.
I have a question, please. What is all about the connectors tests? Do we have a deadline, or until when we can do it?
To be honest, I'm not sure if you have a deadline or a due date or something, but the better, the sooner you do it, the better. So I will try and get it done this week, because it's something that's supposed to be done before starting the course, even, or during the first week that you start the course. So you should have that by now. But if you don't have it by now, you can do it this week that you've had that reminder. So try and get it done.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right, guys. So I think I'm just missing one. Please try to.
Yes, it's me. I think I closed
Oh,
while I was speaking. I'm sorry. Oh, no. Here it is. Okay.
okay then, guys. So thank you so much for
Yes,
joining.
I said.
I'll see you all next class.
Thank you. Bye, teacher.
Bye,
Bye.
teacher.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, teacher.
Bye.